Chapter 2 of the Tale of Daddy Longlegs. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This reading by Lucy Burgoyne. The Tale of Daddy Longlegs by Arthur Scott Bailey. Chapter 2. The New Neighbour. All the neighbours began to call him Daddy Longlegs, and anyone might naturally think that he had lived in Pleasant Valley a great many years. But it was not so. Late in the summer Daddy Longlegs had appeared from nobody knew where. Although people often inquired where his old home was, he always pretended that he didn't hear them, and began to talk about the weather. And as for Daddy Longlegs' new home in Pleasant Valley, nobody knew much about that either. No matter how curious anyone might be, it did him no good at all to ask Daddy Longlegs where he lived. When prying persons put that question to him, Daddy Longlegs always waved his 8 legs in every direction and answered, "Over there." Of course, such a reply told nothing to anyone, and it led to a good many disputes among Daddy Longlegs' neighbors. No two could ever agree as to which of Daddy's legs really pointed toward the place where he dwelt. Anyhow, the wily gentleman was frequently seen scrambling about the stone wall by the roadside near Farmer Green's house. And little Mr. Chippy, who made his home in the wild grapevine that grew on the wall, always claimed that Daddy Longlegs was a neighbor of his. "He's a good neighbor too," Mr. Chippy told his friends. "He's very quiet and he never quarrels. And he's always pleasant and ready for a chat. It's too bad that he's deaf. I've asked him at least a dozen times how old he is, but he never seems to hear me." Old Mr. Crow, who liked nothing better than prying into other people's affairs, slowly shook his head at that, and coughing slightly he remarked in a hoarse voice that there must be reasons why Daddy Longlegs wouldn't tell where he came from, nor where he was living, nor how old he was. But Mr. Crow wouldn't say what he thought might be the reasons. Although he was a wise bird, there were some things he didn't know. Now, in a way, Mr. Crow was right. Daddy Longlegs had the best of reasons for keeping some facts to himself. In the first place, he had never lived anywhere except in Pleasant Valley. In the second place, he was scarcely more than 2 months old when people began to notice him in the neighborhood of the stone wall. And in the third place, since he was somewhat timid, he thought it just as well if people didn't know where he made his home. He was, as his friends often said, an odd person. For instance, he had always looked old, from the very first. And when everyone began to call him Daddy, it was only to be expected that he would not care to let people know that he was not even a year old, instead of 90 or 100, as they supposed. Besides, probably nobody would have believed the truth, so he never told his age. Indeed, there were some who claimed that Daddy Longlegs must be much more than only 100 years old. They thought that his queer, tottering walk alone was enough to show his great age. But it is not strange that his walk seemed a bit uncertain. When a person has 8 feet, it is to be expected that he will have a little trouble managing them. It is to be expected that he will sometimes find himself trying to walk off in several different directions at the same time. CHAPTER 3